Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's great seeing you. Great meeting you again. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're passionate about?
Thank you. Thanks very much for having me. You're generous to take the time. So I'm a former software entrepreneur. I kind of largely retired a few years ago. Had a bunch of different companies, but I spent 20 years probably, I think, in ad tech, and I had several companies that were in that space, mainly in the world of analytics and so on. I look back on that, and ad tech has been responsible for some things that I think now we're fairly critical of. It didn't start out that way, but it ended up there. So I decided to look back on some of that and dredge up the reasons why, why did we end up in the situation that we're in? And I did write a book. I've got to mention the existence of my book, otherwise, my publisher will be unhappy with me. So the book is called Free is Bad, and that's the essence of what I have to say. I think that the existence of free stuff has been not entirely good for people. So there's Free is Bad, the original edition. I wrote a TLDR edition.
Oh, nice.
Is
that the one you're giving away for free? No.
I do have something.
That would be ironic if you were giving away a book called Free is Bad for free. Wouldn't that be ironic?
Well, I can't give away a free book, but I do have free stickers. And if anybody wants to send me a tweet, you can reach me on Twitter at Free is Bad. I think that's my Facebook handle as well. I'll send you some stickers, and I'd love to. They're great.
I love it. I love it. Well, I was listening to your book, and I felt like I was living the same life as you, because I got to Silicon Valley around 97, right after all of the craziness in 95, and it was all about the ad model, right? It was all about Yahoo and Overture and Google, and I mean, I'm listening to this stuff and I'm going, wow, this is the same history, because I was actually at Yahoo from 2004 to 2009, so I lived through a little bit of that history that you were talking about, where they paid, that Google basically stole the concept of pay-per-click ads from Overture, and then they swung this deal, and it's like, oh my God, what a terrible deal that they swung. It was just, they just thought, this has made Google the biggest company, practically the biggest company in the world, and Yahoo lost that deal for peanuts.
Yeah,
I just thought it was amazing how that happened. It was terrible deal makers at the time. But anyway, go on. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many little twists and turns in the whole story. One of the discoveries that I made, and remember that I started in my research for the book. I started by looking back, because I wanted to understand, how did we get here? So we live in this world in which all of this stuff is free, and I'm sure your listeners will know, if you get the service for free, you're the product, not the customer, right? It's very yeah. Everybody knows it. But there was this there's this other seminal thought, I think, in internet startups, that information wants to be free, and I'm sure everybody's heard that. But
that's all they ever hear.
There's this other half of that phrase, and I didn't realize this until I did the research. The other half of the phrase, you can look this up, right? This is it's out there. The other half of the phrase is, information also wants to be expensive, because it's just so valuable. And that really struck me. And I wondered, what would things be like if we hadn't had the urge to make everything free? I think the Google scenario, Yahoo also actually would have been a very different company, but there's a whole set of things that would have been different. And I wanted to explore some of the history of that, but I also wanted to figure out, well, what could we use that? Could we use that knowledge to improve our own lives? So actually, I made the change, and in fact, as of now, I don't use any free services for anything, with the exception of search. Now, search, in fact, there's a couple of places you can get search but you don't pay for. But actually, I pay for everything. I pay for my email. I pay for, indirectly, I pay for maps because it's bundled with the phone. I don't use Google. I've got a legacy account that I need to use for complicated reasons, but I don't use Google at all.
Smart.
So, yeah, and it's kind of liberating, I feel good.
But the problem is you're being paid, you're paying and you're being tracked, right? No,
that's right.
It depends.
Yeah. That's right. And I have a lot of knowledge of how tracking works because of the history I had with doing analytics of that tracking. So I really, really understand that stuff. And I got really uneasy with that. Wait a minute, I'm paying you guys and you're following me around the web, and this just doesn't seem right.
Yeah. Well, I got a question for you. So since you were looking at the history of it, like where did we get this? I mean, I don't think it's just that statement, information wants to be free. I think a lot of factors sort of came in together and said, you know what, we need to give this stuff away. Like where did we come up with the let's give it all away business model?
It's so complicated. It sort of happened by stealth. I mean, before Yahoo really was really dominated, which I mean, believe it or not, of course, they did dominate for a while there.
Oh yeah, no, I remember that.
Right. You didn't used to get free email. I mean, that's kind of, email is sort of the canonical example because email is this really personal thing. You'd expect it to be private and confidential because you kind of think it works like the USPS,
Yeah.
Imagine the postal worker, comes up to your house and says, here's all of your mail. I opened it, but don't worry, I didn't read any of it. Right? That's effectively what happens with free email, right? But they didn't used to be free. It used to be bundled with your ISP account. I think you remember those days when you first got an ISP, right? You get an email account with it. And I think really the problem is you can't charge a very small amount for something. It's not viable for a business to say, we're going to give you email a private confidential email for 5 cents a month, right? It just doesn't work. You have to make it either significantly expensive, meaningfully expensive, or you have to make it free. There's this dead zone in between where businesses just can't survive. And and Yahoo realized that making it free and then monetizing other stuff was the way to go. And of course, as you said, Google then just did it, but 100 times more efficiently. So I think we got lulled into the idea that it's all good when stuff is free. I mean, I'll give you an analogy. I'll give you just to sort of trip everybody up and really think about this. Let's imagine a world where you can get hamburgers completely for free, okay? And on top of that, there is no FDA saying
it might happen. It might come to pass.
It might come to, yeah. There's no FDA regulating what you can put into those hamburgers, right? You want to put sawdust in them, like go right ahead.
Yeah.
Now, I just wouldn't eat one of those things. I wouldn't do it. It doesn't matter that they're free. I wouldn't do it. But we're there. We're there with online stuff. That's the world in which we live, in my humble opinion.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you should mention that because I think you're talking about the realm of micropayments, right? I mean, where although micropayments are usually like even sub a penny, but you're right. There's this weird space in there. And I mean, I did work for banks as well, and we investigated micropayments, and usually the biggest problem with them was because there was so much overhead to making these small transactions. But I'm going to give you an example that sort of belies what you said. Is what about eBay? I mean, eBay was charging 20 cents a listing. I think they even charge like 10, 15 cents a listing now. So they're able to get away with small payments. Why is it that we couldn't do that with email?
It's complicated. I mean, it's complicated. eBay exists sort of as a known brand, you go there and you're going to transact with that company. They've got your credit card details. They charge the seller, and there's a comparatively small number of sellers and a large number of buyers. So it's not a completely equivalent situation. All right, there's a lot of complexity there. I'm not really also completely just whining about the fact that we get this stuff for free. Despite my free hamburgers analogy, one of the problems I think is that we simultaneously expect the stuff to be free, and we get things like privacy. I mean, we're all worked up over privacy with Google and all that sort of stuff, but there's nothing, you don't have to use Google, right? I mean, you just don't. There's plenty of other stuff. So charging people, it has its own set of problems. It's not a panacea. It's really not. But if it's important to us as individuals, then it's a choice that we should be willing to make. I mean, right, think of it this way. If you're willing to pay for it, for whatever the service is, then presumably you're willing to do that because it's sufficiently important to you. Selling on eBay is a great example. It's important to you. It matters. So you're willing to do it. But if it doesn't matter, well, then it's reflected in the price. It doesn't matter that much. So, what do you think? It's fine, right?
Exactly. Well, I mean, the thing is, but the other question is, I mean, you were talking about privacy earlier, is that I remember when there was the original big Facebook blow up, when they lost all that private information. And it was a huge thing for a short period of time. And then all of a sudden it blew over and nobody cared anymore. And it's like, at that point, I was working with the World Economic Forum. We were coming up with some data privacy standardization thing where we would say people would own their own data and it would be located in a certain place and blah, blah, blah. And it was like a hot button for like a few months, and then it just disappeared. So it's almost like people didn't care or don't care anymore about privacy.
It's just too complicated. I mean, for most people, yeah, I think so. It's just too complicated. I mean, I decided to just come right out and say free is bad. I mean, the problem is not policy. It's not this privacy stuff. It's way simpler than that. It's just, what do you expect for free? I mean, really? What do you expect? So
like saying nothing is free, right? I mean, it's like Canadian healthcare. Everyone goes, it's free, but it's not really free because you pay for it in taxes. So when you say free is bad, you're not really saying free anyway, because you're paying for it in other types of currency, which is not just monetary.
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly. So, I mean, somebody somewhere has to be the customer. There's no way around it. Somebody has to be the customer. So when I set about changing the way that I live my life online, rather than getting worked up over this privacy stuff or trying to change a company's mind or doing any of that, I just signed up for a paid email service, where they have no economic incentive to sell access to my data. There's no economic incentive there. I mean, put it another way, economics and the economic motivations lie at the heart of most things. So why not just solve the problem with economics rather than policy or whatever else you might cook up, right? That was, and that works for me. It doesn't. There's plenty of other people that I know where it doesn't work for them, and I think that's because it's just not that important to them. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. And if they can get something, so what is that? Is that like just a human thing where we'd prefer if we can get something for free, we'd do it no matter what we'd give up for it?
There is a lot of just intractable human behavior going on in this sort of stuff. we like to eat sausages, but we don't want to see them being made. Right?
That's true. That's true.
Right. So,
oh, this burger's delicious, but don't show me the cow it came from, right?
that's right. Yeah. That's exactly right. So, as long as the mechanism by which our data is bought and sold in return for these free services, as long as that's not visible to us, I think we're okay with it. I mean, we shouldn't be, but we shouldn't be okay with eating hamburgers either, right?
Yeah. so I'm gonna say your presupposition, like free is bad. What does bad mean to you? Because it seems like a lot of people don't think free is bad.
Well,
like, bad in what sense? Like, what's the context of bad in your statement?
It's the opposite of good. I mean, it's as simple as that. I think because we grew up, actually specifically here, meaning you and I, we grew up with this information wants to be free mentality. And there's this sort of unspoken subtitle there that, well, free is good. I mean, free's got to be good. It's right. Free's good. It's always good. Yeah. I'm not so sure about that. Right? I think every time you poke around underneath the covers of the machinery at the sausage factory, you go, I don't think I like how that really works. So I'll tell you an interesting thing. Here's a little interesting anecdote. The guy who invented hypertext. Okay, now here's a piece of trivia, right? The guy who invented hypertext. Trivia question here. You don't know who that is? I'll bet.
Tim Berners-Lee, right?
No, it's not.
It's not.
It's not. No, he copied the idea. He copied the idea.
That guy. Yeah. I had no idea. Yeah. I thought it was his invention.
No. Now I've been very careful with my statement. The guy who invented hypertext, not the guy who invented HTML. The guy who invented HTML is Tim Berners-Lee. But the guy who invented hypertext is this unsung hero, Ted Nelson. His name's Ted Nelson. And you should look up this guy.
I will.
He passed away about 10 years ago, and he was just a phenom. I mean, just amazing intellect. He came up with this idea of hyperlinked together documents. Right, you could traverse from one document to another by clicking on a hyperlink across these documents, and it was called Project Xanadu. Right, you can look it up. Right, Tim Berners-Lee then took the idea of Xanadu and, to his credit, did something much simpler and much easier to implement. So the problem with Xanadu was its complexity. But one of the things that Xanadu contained, was micropayments for every piece of content that you consume. So as you clicked through these documents, you would pay to read them. And this probably is the reason why, in the end, Xanadu failed. I mean, it just never gained traction, because you can just sort of sense it's kind of too complicated. I mean, can you imagine that? Like, every time it's all so heavyweight. But Tim Berners-Lee came up. Yeah, that's right. Even just emotional overhead. I mean, just the idea that every time you click on something, you're gonna a little bit.
That was the biggest issue with micropayments, is that people are like concerned. It's like, the more I surf, the more I'm going to spend, and at the end of the month, I'm going to be saddled with this huge bill because I have no idea how much I'm spending. And there, you remember DigiCash, and there was a few of those other vendors that tried to do something like that, and they had a little counter in the top corner of your screen, which would show you the micropayments totaling up, and it would just freak people out.
Was this done via browser plugins? Is this how it worked?
Yeah. It was like browser plugin, or there was a downloadable wallet you could have on your desktop. It would be in your taskbar, and it would show you. And there was just so many people tried out various micropayment things, and none of it ever flew.
Yeah, and you can see why Tim Berners-Lee. all right, his intent was, of course, you know, as an academic one. I mean, he wanted to make it easy for academics to collaborate. So he takes the hypertext concept, just wraps these very easy to implement concepts around it, HTML and HTTP. You know, I'm not trivializing the effort there, because the key thing was that he made it free. It was just right. You can get the source code for free. The web pages get served up for free. The whole thing's free, right? And of course that works. That actually in academia that works pretty well. But it brushed aside. It just absolutely brushed aside the very idea that payment for anything was possible. And it's only really recently, I think, that we're starting to see the tide shift. I am of the opinion, I personally think we are starting to see that tide turn a little bit. And I don't think we're ever going to go back to Ted Nelson and his bonkers Xanadu ideas. But
well, you never know. With crypto, there's a possibility, there's a slim chance that with crypto and its ability, because that's the biggest thing. I mean, when I was researching micropayments, it was the overhead, right? If it wasn't for the overhead, you know, fees you have to pay to every person in the payment chain, then you'd be able to have completely zero fee transactions. And if you could do some kind of crypto point to point thing, which has no overhead, then you're getting closer to micropayments. I mean, it's not, we're not there yet, but it is possible. I can see it possibly happening if people ever got over this whole aversion to paying anything for anything.
I am 100% in agreement. I think if there is a way forward here, if there is a way for the consumer to be the customer instead of a product, with a few notable exceptions, if there is a way forward with that, then I think it's going to be micropayments via cryptocurrency. And as you point out, the cryptocurrency would make the micropayment aspect very straightforward, and the infrastructure for sort of, you know, automatically debiting and that sort of thing, that's all much more straightforward in a cryptocurrency world. I think the other thing that cryptocurrency might bring to it is the idea that you might have a parallel currency for your online life, and so you retain you know, your dollar payments or your fiat currency payments for your offline stuff, but online, I think we'd be much more comfortable paying out cryptocurrency in small amounts there, because it somehow feels different. I'm not sure I can really explain why. I'd like to ask you, if I said to you, it feels different, I'm sure you would agree, but why? Yeah. Why would it feel different? Right?
Well, because I mean, I've been in financial services, so I know that there's so many middlemen, there's so many layers to payments that everybody's got to take a little piece. Right. But when it comes to something like crypto, if I pay you directly. There is no, I mean, it's just a ledger change, right? It's just a flip on a ledger. It's gone from my account to your account. It's literally like one bit flips from here to there. So there's no middleman to take extra money. So it's almost like the concept of, you know, Ethereum has gas, right? To pay for the network itself. It might be a minuscule amount of gas to pay for the cost of the transaction. That's why it kind of feels different. But I think for a lot of people, if they're just your regular, normal individuals, crypto is just like, it's just fairy dust. It's not real, right?
Yeah. I mean, of course, perhaps diehard crypto enthusiasts would recoil at that.
Well, they probably would, but I'm just looking at it from I mean, I own crypto, and I don't know if you own crypto, but I mean, there's value there for sure, but it's almost as bad as a fiat value. We're like, we all agree this stuff has value, so it has value.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic that we might see a future where we can consume stuff online, and we pay for that consumption via crypto. But this is one of the reasons, by the way, that I'm deeply skeptical about Facebook and their efforts in the metaverse. I mean, in my experience, businesses really struggle to ever transcend one type of customer to having two types of customers. I mean, it's exceptionally difficult to scale a business when you are trying to serve fundamentally different sets of customers simultaneously.
Yeah.
I mean, I think actually you sort of can't name a company really that does that. And Facebook, its customers are advertisers. It's just advertisers. I can't imagine that company can scale up metaverse stuff other than that fulfilling the needs of advertisers.
Exactly.
And I just can't.
Well, maybe that's
see
where
that.
it's going. That's
I can't
exactly
see that
where it's
working.
going.
I just can't see that working.
Well, isn't that the same thing that happened with Google? I mean, Android phones are basically just, anher way of serving ads.
Right.
They charge for the phones and they charge for the software, or maybe they don't. But again, it's just another medium. It's like when I first heard Google getting into the mobile phone game, I thought to myself, why are they doing that? And it's just another way of pushing ads onto people.
Right.
It's the same business model. It's just another medium.
That's right.
I mean, at least Google is a little more straightforward with it, right? I mean, and then they use their money to do other things, but it's still their number one earner, right? I mean, if it wasn't for the ad revenue, it wouldn't be there.
Yeah. Google is described in the press as being a tech company, and they're not. They're an advertising company.
Absolutely not.
It's, I mean, their customers are advertisers. So Facebook, even actually Google with Google with augmented reality or virtual reality headsets. I just don't see it. I don't see it because I don't see how you can make advertising work in that medium. Do people, when people experience VR, do they want an NBC experience or do they want a Netflix experience? Right? I think they want a Netflix experience. I think they don't want 15 minutes of content followed by 5 minutes of ads a la NBC. I cannot imagine it. Yeah. So how is Google going to make money out of that? How is Facebook going to make money out of that? I don't buy it. There's other companies.
Well, that's why I think that the company to watch is Apple in this space, because they're going to be building, actual VR headsets and AR headsets. Whenever they decide to finally get into the game, those are the people you have to watch out for in the metaverse space. Yeah,
well, and also their relationship with companies that create content. I mean, they've got relationships with the movie studios and with game developers, right? They didn't stiff all of their game developers the way that some companies have done. They sort of nurture their game developers and their the people that create movies. They've got the movie studios. Well, those people are the folks who are going to be creating the good stuff in the AR VR world. So you better be forging a good relationship with those people. You're probably not going to go very far.
Oh yeah, exactly. You gotta create the content for it, because the content is the driver. Yeah. Right. People, it's like, I didn't buy a PC because I wanted a PC. I bought a PC because I wanted to do a spreadsheet or I wanted to play a video game or whatever. So it's always the thing that you want to do that's driving the pickup of the technology, right?
Yeah. I can't imagine content creators on Facebook who basically create little memes, right? I mean, those are the content creators on Facebook. I can't imagine that's going to work very well in an AR VR world.
Exactly.
You've got to have some pretty serious talent and money to throw at content creation in an AR VR world. It's going to be super expensive.
Absolutely. So one of the things you talked about in the book is that we should try and get away from this free model, right? So how do we do that? Like, if I was a startup founder, if I had a new business idea, I wanted to move forward and I didn't want to go down, is it inevitable that I have to offer something for free, or can we get over that hurdle?
I think you can get over the hurdle. I think you can. You just have to, you have to be serious about things like privacy and why it is that a consumer ought to want to pay. I mean, this is the problem here is that you do need to change behavior, and I am smart enough, savvy enough to know that the behavior is inordinately hard to change.
Oh yeah.
But the world is kind of shifting here. I mean, we've all had this world in which free stuff is good. I don't know. There's a groundswell here. I think that's changing. You need, if you are upfront, I think if you're upfront with your customers about why they should want to pay, then I think you're on a good path. I mean, I'll use an analogy for you if you like. I think 20 years ago, when you went into the supermarket, buying eggs was a very straightforward proposition, right? There was sort of medium-sized eggs and big eggs, and that's about it. And now buying eggs is really complicated.
Oh yeah, the cases are huge. There's different colors. There's different variations of it. It's just a huge amount of choice now. Yeah.
Now, when I go into the supermarket, I'm notorious for this. When I go into the supermarket, I buy the most expensive eggs they have. It's as simple as that. Right? Because it's the fastest way for me to make a decision that I want quality. It's just, right, it's the quickest way to get to what's the best quality.
But of course, you understand that quality and price don't necessarily overlap. But go on.
They do more often than not.
That's true. That's true.
I mean, they do.
I don't think you would make a bad choice by using that criteria. Yeah,
that's right. I mean, I might end up paying more for eggs, and honestly, if it was $20 for half a dozen, I might draw the line at that.
What kind of eggs are these? These are golden eggs, man.
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. But within reason, I make my decision very efficiently. And it works for me. Now, there's plenty of other people, and who would choose the cheapest eggs, and that's fine. That works for them. But I think with online services, we're headed in that same direction. Right now, we're in you can get medium eggs or big eggs, and that's it. But I think we are headed towards a more discerning buying public, and that's possibly not going to be every consumer out there. It's probably not even going to be the majority of consumers out there. But you can differentiate yourself, I think, quite effectively by being upfront about privacy and data collection and data retention and all of that. And I think if you're going to be honest about that, that means you probably are going to struggle to make stuff free. So just tell people and be one of those companies that doesn't make everything free. I think it'll be successful.
It's kind of like Proton Mail and Gmail, right? I mean, I pay $50 a year for Proton Mail because I want the privacy, I want that, and I'm okay with that. I mean, the only downside of it is it doesn't really integrate that well when you're trying to work with other people. So the network effect thing sort of breaks down a little bit. So I still have a Gmail account, which I just use for other things. But yeah, I think you're right. I think we're seeing these services pop up, these paid services that can provide that extra layer of privacy or whatever you're looking for, and people are starting to be more willing to pay for stuff like that.
Yeah, Proton Mail is a great example. I mean, really, it is. They are very honest about this stuff and very straightforward with the consumer. I think they're a company to watch, and they're admirable. Actually, I use them as well. My account is with them. My sort of junk account into which stuff goes that I don't really care about, you should know, is still at Yahoo. I still and it's
good for you, man.
No, it's total self-interest. It's because I know that company is too inept to do anything with the data.
Yeah. Exactly. And I work there. I could tell you that that's true. I trust Yahoo to not do anything with the data more than I trust Google not to do anything with the data.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. I worked for Omid Kurdistani. I worked at Netscape. So before you were
Oh,
at
you
Yahoo,
did?
I did.
Oh, no
Yeah,
way.
that was like it was the only real job I ever had. Yeah, I worked at Netscape for about 2 years, I think. And I worked for.
Oh yeah, I think you mentioned it. It was like 95 through 97 or something like that, right during the insanity.
Yeah,
The insanity period.
It was crazy stuff. And I worked for Omid Kurdistani, and he went on to build the sales team at Google. Right.
Mm.
So I think, yes, that company is definitely smart enough to do something with your data and sell it. Because Omid would absolutely is smart enough to do that.
All right. So going forward, it's like let's think about the future. It's like 10 years from now. It's the year 2032. Where are we going to be? Do you think we're going to see sort of an explosion of proton mail type services and people are going to start migrating away from the free, or do you think we're going to get sucked in by more free, or where do you think we're going to be?
Predicting the future, I think cryptocurrency will solve it because of micropayments. So I think you are absolutely right to identify that as a sea change. Cryptocurrency, not because it's crypto and not sort of the libertarian, no government type thinking that sometimes goes with cryptocurrency, but because it's emotionally detached from the money that you need to pay for rent and groceries. It's somehow different. It's it's fairy dust, as you said, and micropayments, I think, will really drive that. I think also that consumers, a substantial minority of consumers, will be much more discerning about stuff being free. I don't think legislation is going to get us to that point between now and then. I mean, legislation, I'm skeptical about legislation. It usually solves the wrong problem. There's a bunch of complexities with it. So I think micropayments and cryptocurrency, I think, I'm going to really go out on a limb here and say that I think that Apple is the company that is going to drive that. And the reason is they've got this whole privacy shtick. And they've got a wallet integrated into the phone that people, or into the devices that people are very comfortable with. They don't serve, a huge contingent of advertisers, so they haven't got that divided loyalty. Their loyalty is only to the consumer. They don't really serve anybody else. So I think that if there's anybody that's going to drive that sort of integrated micropayment that I think you would need into a device, then that device would be AR, some kind of AR headset. Yeah, I think that's going to be Apple. Even though you could argue that Google with the scale and the cloud infrastructure and so on could get there, I'd still have a hard time seeing that they would, because they always need to serve the advertisers. That's who pays the bills. So that's my prediction. Apple, AR, micropayments integrated into the content consumption experience.
Yeah, no, I could see that happening. That's actually a good thought. But on the crypto piece, it's like, what do we need to do to get people to like understand that crypto is, because it seems like we have so much cryptocurrency out there, and it's just the Wild West. Do we have to create another cryptocurrency, or do we start using Apple Cash? I mean, what needs to happen for it to become mainstream?
The problem right now is that you have to buy it. I mean, you have to. I'm saying buy because you have to go through a transaction in which you give up dollars and you get fairy dust in return.
Yeah, exactly. You can't just earn crypto unless of course you can mine it. But I mean, you're right. We're not in a situation right now where you can just earn it. Right.
But I think you will. I think you will be earning crypto. I think in the same, if the wallet is integrated into the device, into your pool of devices, that you use throughout the course of the day. And those devices, if they're properly integrated, I think you could earn crypto, and you would earn tiny, tiny amounts. I mean, to start thinking that you're going to earn $10, per whatever per hour, that's ludicrous. It's ludicrous.
Yeah.
You only need to earn tiny, tiny fractions of crypto. And then when you go and experience, an hour-long, Netflix whatever special, or you through your VR headset, and that costs you a tiny, tiny fraction of a crypto coin, then that's fine, right? That would work. So I think that it's maybe not accurate to say you'll be earning crypto, because if you earn, then you can spend. Now, both of those words are very heavyweight words, right?
Yeah.
You earn big stuff and you spend big stuff. No. Those are fiat currency words. But what if you gain crypto and you, I don't know, what's the other word?
Loss is unfortunately the other word, and that's not good either.
You can't say loss. I don't know what, it evaporates.
Collect.
I don't know.
Collect. How about that? You collect crypto.
Collect would be good.
You collect it and you share it. How about
share is good.
How's that?
There you go. Yeah, that's right. So activity online, you collect crypto and you share your crypto.
That's right.
That whole concept of sharing and equanimity, those are really important concepts, and I think the world is moving in that direction.
Yeah. No, I like that. And then you're right about the heaviness. But then if you think about it, the transition from the current model, because we pay Netflix, I don't know, $10 a month or whatever, and they serve however much they serve, but we're way overpaying them. If we were moving to a micropayment model, then only if we watch something do we pay them. So like the profitability model is going to flip. They're getting money off of us.
Yeah, but the driver of all of this is going to be young people, because young people, they understand this equanimity that we need to have, this reciprocity that we need to have in the economy. And so a reciprocal arrangement in crypto, right, where you
collect.
There you go. Yeah, you collect and you share. That would really resonate with young people. So I'm very optimistic that this will come to pass.
Well, I love the sound of that. I mean, I think it's going to be my next startup. It's like but we have to create a whole new cryptocurrency just for that, right? Because we can't use whatever's already out there.
I don't know.
Bitcoin's too expensive.
That's one of the problems, of course, with crypto is that there's so many to choose from, right? I mean, that is actually an underlying problem with the whole thing. Ethereum might work with that. I don't know. Somebody's going to solve it. Somebody's going to solve this. I'm not even sure that it's really a money-making thing. I mean, it's sort of like
I think that's key, because I think once you take the profit motive out of it, then it becomes much more palatable.
Yeah, exactly. It would be sort of like, say, well, the Federal Reserve must just make tons of money, right?
Yeah.
I don't think so. Right? But it's got all this money going through it. They must be rolling in it.
Exactly. Trillions of dollars are going through there. Oh man. So what's your advice then to startup founders out there? Do you think they should start by charging money, or come up with a business model that works that's not free, or is there any advice you can give?
I think it would be to have courage and have confidence that people actually want to pay. They want something in return, but they want to pay. Actually, Zoom, we're using here this, the Zoom video calling service, and I pay for an account on Zoom, right? Regularly.
Yeah, me too.
As soon as Zoom started to become mainstream, I'm like, this is just too useful. I've got to have this. I've got to pay for it. I don't want to fiddle around with the free version and all the rest of it. So there's more and more people that that are adopting this mode of thinking. They go into the supermarket and they just buy the most expensive eggs in the refrigerator, right? There's people like that. I'm not the only one.
Yeah. But the other thing about Zoom, which I thought was interesting, is that their price point is very low. I mean, I thought, I'm paying what, $20 a month, $15 a month, or whatever. It's not that high. I mean, it's practically, it's less than my cable bill, that's for sure, or at least less my internet bill. So for the utility that I'm getting out of it, it's a deal.
Yeah, and compare that to Skype, right? Now, Zoom has kind of replaced Skype, even though Skype actually has some things that make it in some ways more useful, but it has. The fact is, Zoom has kind of replaced Skype. Can you imagine a decade ago, when Skype really took off, or maybe more than that? Can you imagine charging for it? Right?
Oh yeah,
that seemed bonkers a decade ago, and yet now here we are. Both you and I readily pay for Zoom, no problem.
Yeah.
Right? So we are living examples of the willingness people have to pay for stuff, because we've become savvy to the negative consequences of assuming that everything should be free.
That's interesting. It's interesting because you're probably right that there's way more people who are willing to pay for something that are out there that we think, because everyone just has this immediate thought that, oh, we got to give this thing away for free so we can get traction, so we can get audience, so we can get whatever. But that's not necessarily the case.
No, that's right. I mean, if I have a choice between a free service and a paid service, I will go for the paid service. Now, I might want a free trial.
You're also the guy who buys the $20 eggs.
That's right. That's right. Given the choice, that's right. For all I know, Trader Joe's is running some sort of experiment in my local branch. Right? This is ridiculous. We can just keep raising the prices.
So that guy just keeps coming in and buying the eggs.
If that's true, then for everybody out there, I apologize. I mean, I'm making your eggs more expensive. Yeah. So I think we're onto something. We have got conclusive evidence that people are much more willing now to pay for stuff than they were a decade ago.
Yeah.
So my advice to startup founders and business owners is to have the courage to embrace paying for stuff, because I think you'll also get a better class of customer.
I love it. Awesome. This is great. This has been great. Thank you so much. If somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
Anybody who gets in touch with me gets stickers. Free stickers.
My laptop
Twitter,
is missing stickers. I don't have any stickers on my laptop today. So.
Well, then it's my job to fix that. So I'll don't worry, you won't be left out. I'll send you some stickers.
Awesome.
So yeah, Twitter, I'm free is bad. Twitter, that's probably the easiest way, or email john@orthogonalthinking.org. Sorry about the name there, but if you can't spell it, well then
that's okay. I'll put all the information in the show notes so people can go directly to your website and check it out. So this has been great. Thanks so much. It's great talking with you.
Huge fun. Right. Thanks a lot.
Talk to you later.